Okay. You're just going to cue me in.
Okay, we're live.
We're live.
Yes.
Exciting. Okay, we're sorry for being, I guess we're a couple of minutes late, huh?
Yeah, a
I
couple.
apologize for that. It's my
Just a
fault.
couple.
Okay.
So welcome everyone to this live webinar. We had done this a couple weeks before with the president, Christopher King of United for Human Rights Florida. And now we have the ED of United for Human Rights Florida, Cristian Vargas.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, by the way, for having me, Sandra. I'm super excited to be here. I haven't done this before with you. And I know you are, at this point, a professional interviewer with all the webinars that you do. So I'm glad to be here and just, keep this to a candid, transparent talk about what we do with human rights, and whatever questions you prepared for me, I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. And
Yeah.
also, just to let you know, like everybody that's watching us live, they can also ask questions directly to Cristian, and we're going to be taking them up so that he can address them properly.
Yeah, I'd be
Okay?
happy to. Absolutely. And we posted a couple days ago, Sandra, I think you saw that, and I told you about it, that anyone that does ask a question, you're the moderator, you're going to decide which ones get asked that fit into our time frame. But those that you end up asking me, we're going to be sending them free merchandise, a shirt and a hat from United for Human Rights. So all they need to do is just ask a pertinent question that you then ask me. And
all of the people, like everyone?
As long as you choose the question. If the question wasn't asked to me and it didn't make it into your list of questions, then no. But we will just need their address for those watching that end up having a question answered, and we'll send them the shirt and hat. We'd be happy to.
Amazing. Okay, yeah. That's awesome. I like it. So that's going to encourage comments. And obviously, share the webinar so other people can reach this. And you never know who you can impact, right, with the information that it's going to be provided. So we're going to get started. I'm just going to change the view here, Cristian.
Perfect. Okay, great. You're in charge. You're in charge, Sandra. And like you said, anyone else that's watching, and just share it on all your pages, like, comment, and make sure, help us spread this word as far as we can in terms of human rights, because that's what this is all about, education. So feel free to smash that share button.
Amazing. Okay, so we are ready.
Good.
So, Cristian, for everybody watching, and also for me, because I don't know that much about you, so I think it's going to be very helpful.
Okay, good.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what do you like to do, yeah.
Okay, good. And keep it to under 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So my name is Cristian Vargas, as everyone now knows. And I'll kind of go from beginning to more present. I'm originally from Spain. I was born in Granada, Spain, in the south. And I moved here to Florida, actually, when I was a little kid with my parents, very loving parents. My mother still lives here with my other brother. And I went to school here. I then went to high school in Oregon at a school called the Delphian School. And that's where I graduated high school, and I studied architecture, civil and criminal justice, as well as a lot of literature, a lot of history. And it was a beautiful program, just altogether beautiful program. And that's kind of where I got my first introduction to culture, to humanity, to different societies. I've traveled a lot as well in my younger years, whether with family, on my own, or with my school. And that I consider is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now as the executive director of United for Human Rights, is that I've been able to travel and meet people all over the world. And that's been a blessing, because it's opened my eyes to humanity. It's opened my eyes to, how people interact, how they don't interact, the problems that communities face. And it also opened my eyes to the realization that people are basically good, and they want to help, they want to be helped, and they're just looking for ways to do that effectively. So that's why I love doing what I do now, which I've been the executive director for 6 years in United for Human Rights Florida, or almost 6 years in July, because I love this because I get to meet people and work with people that actually want to help others indiscriminately, no matter what faith they're a part of, no matter the color of their skin, no matter who or what they believe in or what their uprising was. It's all just a matter of helping the community and helping all of us unequivocally. And that is why I love doing what I'm doing, because I get to meet those people, and there's tons of them in every community I've ever gone to. And doing this job here, which is really not so much a job, it's a crusade, it's an adventure. It's brought me so much closer to those people out there that want to help, that want to change the world, that want to change their community, that want to change their household, no matter how small or big their impact is, they want to do that. And I love working with those types of people that want to do that. So in those, however long I took, 3 minutes, it's kind of who I am and what I do. My education and why I do what I'm doing now is because of that passion for finding others that like to help and helping them in their endeavors.
Right. And I think you touched a good point related to like all the activities that you did while you were traveling, or like all the people that you met, because I think that also gives you a broader view of humanity, as you said. And I think it gave you an understanding of human rights even better. I would believe so, right?
Absolutely. It just kind of opens your eyes. It's not that you need to travel to see what is going on in the world, especially these days, or to want to get involved with helping people. But for me, it's what opened my eyes from my community or my friend zone as a kid or a teenager to the view that there are problems in this world and that people need and want help, and that there are beautiful people all over the world, no matter where you go. So that to me was a key turning point. It was meeting new people everywhere I went. And that's always my my mantra. It's no matter where I go, I want to meet someone new. Every day, no matter where I go, a gas station, an airport, no matter what, I want to meet someone new and get to know them on a personal level. Not just, hi, how are you? But like, who are you? What is your name? What's your background? I love that.
Nice. So you have been working, you said, for 6 years in United for Human Rights. So tell us how you got involved. Like how did you get, like, how did you first start, and now how to now become like the executive director for United for Human Rights Florida?
Absolutely. It was a progress that escalated quite quickly, actually, because I finished school, and then I was studying abroad in Europe, and then I went to California to do some studies, and I was looking for how to, obviously, when after you graduate high school, you're kind of looking to what you're going to be doing. And I was looking at becoming a lawyer and going to law school, potentially Stetson Law or, school in California. I was looking at going to architect school, and I was looking at also just humanitarian programs and projects, nonprofits, and that kind of community work. And then when I came back here to Clearwater, Florida, an opportunity opened where I started just volunteering and helping my church. I started volunteering and helping some programs in the community, some nonprofits. And then in 2015, around June 2015, is when I found out about this human rights center and the United for Human Rights program that was going to be basically opening a brand new office in Clearwater for the community. And since I had already been involved with United for Human Rights, I got offered the position first of program coordinator, and then I took on executive director shortly thereafter, and a couple of months later.
Wow.
And ever since then, that's where I'm at. So it really was just like a 1-2 punch. They were looking for someone young. They were looking for someone that had a background similar to mine, studies and so forth, and it just kind of fit right in.
Nice. Also, you kind of went on board like right when this opened, like the office opened, and you were on board already on this office. Wow. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. I've been here since its opening day when I was a program coordinator, and I've seen it grow. I've seen it grow from a handful of volunteers to dozens and dozens of volunteers that are active, weekly, monthly, with a lot of different activities from home and the communities, a lot of different things. And then, from a couple of partnerships to hundreds across Florida. So it's really been a growing process for United for Human Rights Florida. And I felt like I've been able to go through that growing process with this organization to the point where we are now. So it's been a blessing to grow with it and learn from it as well.
Yeah, totally. I can totally see that. And you have also like probably learned a lot and growed a lot with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I came here a child that was just eager to help. And little did I know that some months into it, and then 6 years later, I would be still running a statewide organization that has, the partnerships, the relationships that we have, and the things that we deal with. Definitely a lot of times it's not for the faint of heart. It's not something that you do because you have nothing better to do. That's for sure. So you do it because you care, and you have to definitely be willing to wake up every day knowing that you're going to help some people in some tough situations.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then, so like if somebody doesn't know what an ED does, like executive director, we call it ED for short, right? But what an ED of United for Human Rights Florida do? What exactly are your responsibilities?
It's a good question. Sometimes I don't know. I would say that ultimately, your responsibilities as an ED, an executive director, is everything in the organization and anything that aligns with your purpose, your mission statement. So for us in United for Human Rights, what is that mission statement? In simplicity, it's to unite individuals from all sectors of life and bring them together to support and advance the cause of human rights, and to teach youth specifically and the community at large their 30 human rights so that they advocate. So it seems like maybe a bit of a complicated mission statement, but it's simple and it's just kind of general. Really, that just means we're here to promote and educate and bring people together under the name of human rights so that they go and fight for their rights. We're not going to tell them how to do it. We're just going to tell them that these exist and you better go do something about it. And we'll help them with whatever they want to do. So our purpose isn't to do the advocating. It's to help individuals advocate for what they believe in. And so with that little speech I just gave you, to answer your question, the responsibilities of an executive director are anything that falls under that. And for me, within the state of Florida, I consider anybody that wants to get involved in the fight for human rights, in human rights education. We want to work with them and help them, even if it's just a platform, with our material, with our program, with our campaign, and our resources to help them get their message across. And that goes all the way from working with organizations, with schools, with government, with churches, with community leaders, with mothers, fathers, and then volunteers, of course, and working with volunteers and staff to get that message out there. So every day is something new. We work long-term of awareness campaigns, upcoming events, bigger projects, and then we work short-term in terms of grassroots, getting that material, that information out to whether it's one by one, handouts to the masses, social media, news, and so forth. That's just kind of like the day-to-day beat of getting our message out there and helping others push their message of what are human rights and do something about it. So anything that basically falls under that category within Florida, I consider our responsibility. Individuals that need help with human rights abuses, we are educational, but we don't turn a blind eye to that. So we'll figure out and find out how we can help them with the resources that we do know and the people we do work that advocate, or lawyers, pro bono, and things like that. So it's a challenge because you never really know what you're walking into. And one day you walk in, you think you have your day set and you've got your plan, you know what you're going to do. And one phone call could change all of that for the next 3 days or week or month. So you always have to be able to pick up things that are thrown at you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you consider in this 6 years of, we're going to say 6 years of you.
Close enough. In like a month, it's 6 years. So we're close.
Okay, but okay, but you leader, like being the ED, the executive director, right? What
Right.
are your main achievements that you have seen here in, like, if we wanted to consider like all that you're responsible as Florida, right? What do you think are the main achievements that you've seen that you have accomplished with your team, of course?
It's a good question. I'm glad you said that. It's a key point because I sit here just representing, but not representing in the name of, but not as its entirety of what United for Humans Florida is. And the people that I work with, the volunteers, you as well, everyone that I work with knows that to me, the most important thing is working together and our volunteers and our staff knowing that this is not a little man team. This is every single thing every single person does to help us is why we're able to do what we do. So when you ask me that, what are my main accomplishments? It's not mine. It's our accomplishments as an organization, as a support factor from our donors to our board, to our volunteers and our partners. It's always working together. It's never individual. I know you know that.
Yeah.
For everyone as well watching, it's never individual.
Exactly.
And also, how do you measure help? And that would be almost like the reverse question for you. But I know I'm not supposed to be asking you the questions. But it's how do you measure help? You know, when you're talking about what we do here is help full time. No matter who anyone is that's coming to us, no matter what the problem is, we're here to help and to raise this awareness and help pull people out of that mud. So how can I put like a value to helping one individual, one child, or 100, or one child from one problem as compared to someone else that has a different problem? They're always different. And there's not any one thing that I could say, or even a list of 5 that I could say that are the main accomplishments because it's so individual. One example of how individual this this help can be, you know, person to person, is we had one time a mother come in with her 2 daughters, and obviously for confidentiality reasons, I'll leave details out, but they were running into some abuse, some violence at home and so forth, and they needed help. And I can tell you, when they first came in, these 2 daughters, aged, I want to say 6 and 8 or 5 and 7, this was just 2-3 years ago or so, they actually couldn't stand the sight of me because I'm a man. And they were afraid. When I stood up to greet them, I was sitting at the front, and when I stood up to greet them, they cowered behind their mother, understandably so, after I heard what they had been through. And so I was very careful and not stimulating anything, and I didn't want to give them any sort of stress. So obviously then I got one of our staff, that's a woman, to help them. But I saw that reaction. And from that moment on, and I found out with the mother what had happened, I would always make sure I wasn't around in the office when they came. And then, you know, our staff volunteers help them through this situation. With other organizations that we work with, we stayed in touch. They would come visit us every so often, every couple of weeks. We connected them up with other organizations that care for domestic violence, abuse, and you know, a local church that could also help them. And the beauty of help is when you see in somebody else, or when you know for yourself, whether you see or not, but when you know that you're doing everything you can to help that person or those people. I think about 3 months after I had first met them, one day they came into the center again, and I was unaware that they were scheduled to come in. So I was again sitting around the front office, and they came in, and I stuttered, and I didn't want to move too suddenly. I welcomed the mother and the girls, and as I got up to leave, the girls ran to me and hugged my legs and thanked me, thanked us for everything. And experiencing that moment when the first time I had seen them, the reaction I saw, and then you fast forward some months and you know that you and your organization were a small part of the change that they will always remember, and that's going to lead them to a better future. you can't put a value on that. You can't measure that. That is what changes you forever. That's when you see how much one person might need help and how we can all do something about the problems in our community. There's nothing magical about what we're doing here. We're just here. We have things that work. We have tools that work. They work. They're proven to work. We want to help. We're passionate. That's all that matters. So that's an example. You look at that and you go,
yeah,
helping these two girls and the mother is something I'll never forget. And I didn't even receive that help. I just saw it. And I'll never forget that moment when they ran up to me. So that's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of the things that we do in this, that everyone here does. That's the beauty of it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like each person has its own value for what they are, and like every person counts. Like if you can just help one person, you're like, it's fine, right?
That's right.
One person, because one person you're impacting a family also, and that family is part of a community, so it's kind of like expanding, right?
That's right. And their life forever. So like in that one example for me, I was, wow, this right now could be all that I've accomplished in my life. And I would say that I've done something good. So I'm very proud of everyone that helped on that. And that's what continuously happens. So you never know how many, the saying, a pebble in the ocean can make waves in the farthest sea, right? And so you never know how far that ripple effect is going to be. And I never will. I never will know how far that ripple effect will be with those two young girls, or anyone involved won't ever probably know. I mean, of course, they're staying in touch, but you never really know.
Exactly.
It's worth it.
Totally. I love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So the center was now open, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the type of activities that the center, like, what does the center do? How do you coordinate all the activities that are here in Florida? Like, how do you get organized to deliver what we are meant to deliver?
Well, first of all, we're very excited that the center is open because, and I also want to make sure everybody knows, because someone asked me this question a couple of days ago. You've been closed for a year when we most needed you, and my response was of course not.
Oh yes, it's not that you were still working, right? Yeah,
totally. We had to follow guidelines and safety precaution with our volunteers, staff, and everyone. So we were mainly working remotely. Myself, and a few other staff were coming into the center, mask and gloves, socially distanced, sanitizing the center, which we still do, but with protocols and so forth and regulations that have been being leaned off now in the state of Florida, we're able to open knowing that we can keep everyone safe when they do come in, and still continuously sanitizing, cleaning the center on a routine basis every single day. So for that year, it's, working remotely, working from home, the volunteers, the staff, and the organizations and partnerships that we're working with, figuring out new ways and developments to overcome the problems that everybody around the world was, up against in terms of making things go virtual, how do you help someone when you are at such a long distance, and how can you provide that support? So those are the things that we were working on and that we had overcome. And so we just continued rolling with that. And the good thing is that that's now not stopping. We're continuing that virtual life while we're also in person, so that where we can't physically reach somebody or an organization, we will still be able to be connected virtually. And that availability, I'm very glad we have that a lot more set up now. But now that we have the center open, it's like godsend that we could open, because I'm so glad that finally I can sit down and see people coming in and all that. And in terms of what we do and how we do it here in the center, I guess I would say this center is what I call the hub for all human rights activities in Florida. It comes in and comes through the center, whether it's material that's needed, advice, ideas, putting together something, designing a flyer or a certificate, like no matter what it is, or phone calls coming in and out, this is the hub for all those human rights activities happening. In the center, I'll kind of walk you through it. But in the center, we have a conference room where we, as United for Human Rights, as well as any nonprofits or educational program in the community, can come and use the conference center as well as the other spaces I'm going to tell you about free of charge, and hold their own meetings, hold their own trainings, hold their own seminars, hold their own events. That's free of charge. So it's really a human rights.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like for the community also.
That's right. It's really a human rights community center. That's exactly right. And more people should know about that. We have organizations that come in that use it for their own events. Once again, it's, they don't have to pay. Why would we charge for promoting something that's intrinsic to all of us? Right. So they come in, they can use the spaces, and we have the conference room. We have volunteer offices and computers and phones and supplies that volunteers can use, or that organizations could also utilize the space to hold some sort of project, putting together mailings and things like that. And then we have a semi-big, I would say, it fits a max of about 40 people inside. So for, the offices that we have, I'd say that I'm really happy about that space. And it's a seminar room / project room. It has different, layouts for it, whether it's theater style seating, conference style tables, trainings, educationals, things like that, or even documentary showings. We have a whole AV setup in there, speaker system, microphone, podium. And it's really great as well, because that's where we do a lot of the events that we hold, all the way from documentary showings to panel discussions, trainings on how to become an educator, human trafficking, events, anti-bullying, educational seminars, and so forth, you name it. So all of those things that we do are here in the center. And when we don't do it in the center, we bring it. We bring it to the school. We bring it to the organization, to that YMCA, that Boys and Girls Club, that Big Brothers, Big Sisters, that after-school program, that church or the other church, no matter what it is. So we hold it in the center, or we'll bring it out to other individuals. And we're constantly trying to just find more ways, more activities of things to do, whether it's in the community or whether we bring it home. So that's, we're constantly just using this space in the platform to promote those human rights.
Amazing. Love it.
Totally.
I love it. And we're going to pick up a question from somebody that has asked here in the chat. So I'm going to show it here. I'm going to read it to you.
Cool.
So it's Mary Christie. She says, "Hi, Cristian. Are there connections you or the organizations have made globally that supports the message?"
That support the message of human rights.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Totally. Well, first of all, hi, Marie. It's good to hear from you. I'm glad you're tuned in, and I hope it's all going well. It's been a while since I've heard from you. And organizations that we work with, well, locally, I'm going to take to this region or area of Florida. And there are a lot of different types of organizations that we do work with. To be frank, there are minimally over 1,000 organizations that we've partnered with, schools, teachers, churches, and so forth, in just the state of Florida. Some examples of those are USF, University of Tampa. We've done a lot of different programs with some of their professors. Depends what the program is. United Nations Tampa Bay, we've done programs with them as well. In Miami, we've worked with the YMCA chapters down there. We work with the City of Miami community centers. We work with also local congressmen in Miami as well as in Tampa Bay. A lot of different churches as well, Baptist Church, Presbyterian Church, a lot of different denominations. And then as well as a lot of schools. So just the other week, we had Sandra and another volunteer go to Bridge Prep Academy to do a seminar on human rights and to the kids. And then the assistant principal emailed us back that they were showing the public service announcements every single morning to the kids school-wide. So there's a lot of different organizations and schools that we have been working with. It's a blessing to work with a lot of them. And it would take me way too long to read off a whole list, but we're always welcome for more. Also to reach out. There's no limit to who we work with and how we work with them. So definitely super welcoming for anyone to reach out or give suggestions to connections they have, churches they go to, clubs they're a part of. Bring the human rights material to them or give them our contact info or vice versa. we love that. Just making new connections, growing and growing. We love that. So you can inundate us with any sort of ideas you have or people you want to bring us to. You are welcome to overwhelm us.
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the things that we like to actually get into the community. Like we need everybody's help. Like if everybody has connections, like as you're saying, like church or other communities or clubs or anything, that's the way to get into that community and to expand the education on human rights, right? Because otherwise we would not be reaching them, right? And we want to reach everyone.
That's right. Yeah, we can't bring all of Florida into our human rights center.
Exactly.
We're not that big. We're just not that big.
Right. So we need everybody's help, right? It's not just us. Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I
hope that answered your question, Marie, by the way, just to end that off.
What?
I hope that answered Marie's question.
Oh, yeah, I think so. If not, she can add another comment. Right. Reacts. Exactly. And there's a lot of people, like there's several comments. So just to let you know. And
perfect.
I think Lorenzo Locarswell.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
She didn't ask a question, but I think it's really good what she mentioned. I'm gonna
Lorenzo?
Lorenzo. Yes, Lorenzo. So sorry. He said, yes, I just went over the first 10 human rights with my students at my private school. So thanks for the human rights material. So I thought it was, I wanted to show that also. It wasn't a question, but it's nice it shows that what people are doing with the work that you have been doing, right? So it's amazing.
Totally. Thank you, Lorenzo. I'm glad to hear that. That's right. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Lorenzo's been using our program for some time with his private school, and anytime he needs more material, he lets us know. I'm really happy to hear that he's still rolling. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we actually had some people from Liberia, West Africa, saying that they're also volunteers. And we have, so that's, great. And then another person, Juan Carlos, he's from Monterrey, Mexico. He's joining us also here.
Love it.
So, yeah. Okay, so so they answered that you had answered Marie's question, so we're good.
Okay, perfect, good. I passed the question.
Okay, so I have another question here. So I'm gonna show it. So it says from Marie, it says, Cristian, why did you choose to back up human rights for the last many years? Any particular reason?
Okay, good question, Marie. I would say probably part of my answer is in the earlier part of the seminar, but there's a bit more details to it in terms of, understanding cultures better, finding out who people are and what community, communities, different communities, and what humanity consists of, which is people that need help and that want to help, and that everyone ultimately is just trying to survive and trying to survive well and be happy. For myself, what's my passion in this? Well, like I mentioned, I was studying law. I was going to be a lawyer. Then I kind of in between that was also looking at the option of becoming an architect / business manager. I kind of was in between this, like, which way do I take my life? And so I had to ask myself, well, what do I like to do? Not just what do I, want to do based off of what it comes with, but what do I like to do? And that answer for me was, some say simple, so for some it might be simple, for some it might be a deep thought, but for me it was just kind of like looking at it and being honest with myself. And that was, I like to help. I like to help other people become better. I like to help my friends, with the problems they have at school. I was someone that even if you didn't know me, even if we had never spoken, anybody could just come up to me and ask me for help with a personal problem, with their relationship, with their schoolwork, with their parents. And I always genuinely enjoyed listening to them and figuring out or trying to figure out how to help them. So when I took a look at that quality, that it's what I liked to do, I realized, okay, well, number one, it has to be somewhere where I can help. I can help people. And then why human rights? Why not some other organization where I'm traveling the world, going to natural disasters, or working with Amnesty International, or. Well, human rights as a subject, at school I studied, like I mentioned, civil and criminal justice. I studied a lot of history. I saw how history was pretty much repeating itself. People say this, but you don't know until you really just look, and you see problems that you read about that are like, this is your past, or this is where your culture came from, or how blah was invaded, or blah took over, or this guy tried to become a dictator, or that guy, or that woman, or these atrocities happened. And you take a look at what's happening around the world. I did this 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I was looking what's happening around the world then. And I mean, it's like no comparison even to now. I don't want to say only gotten worse, but it's definitely more known about with social media. But I realized history was almost leading us the same way. It was leading us to the demise of the planet and of cultures, of the family units, of people working with each other, of people communicating and working together, of communities solving problems, of households staying intact, of economies striving, and honest governments and honest people and honest churches, and you name it, we were leading in the exact opposite direction of that. That's what I saw for myself. Not everyone, of course not. And there's always a percentage that is the bad, and then the good. And the bad is like this small, and the good is like this big. It's not, the majority are not the bad, but you hear about the bad a lot more than you hear about the good. That's for sure.
Exactly.
But still, with that minority of bad, it's still a bit of bad. It's too much bad. And that's what made me go, like, who's gonna turn around and do something about this? Well, what's the underlying root behind all problems, behind everything that happens, in my view, around the world in terms of situations, unsolved problems, war crimes, violations of anything, of like immoralities? To me, the underlying prompt to that is equality, it's respect, and it's the basis of what forms human rights. You take a look at where human rights came from, which is in the Story of Human Rights video that we have. And you take a look at where life came from and how human rights evolved. And human rights evolved because of the problems that people were having. I mean, human rights evolved because of dictators, from Cyrus the Great to Napoleon to, the British coming over to America and founding America, the founding fathers. Those were all human rights abuses. World War II, World War I, doesn't matter. They were all human rights abuses, and people fighting to restore the rights of themselves and those they loved. So what does that mean? We're waiting way too long to implement human rights. We're waiting until we have to fight for rights instead of understand, know, and apply our human rights. We're waiting until we have to, protest and riot unpeacefully, instead of marching peacefully. We're waiting until there's violence for us to ask and demand for peace. And that's too late. Try it, do it, because you definitely can't shut up now. But it's almost
like the same way that it's kind of like the history is repeating itself, right?
That's my point.
But now we have this document that is already laid out, and all we have to do is just apply it, right?
That's my point.
Exactly. Totally.
That part.
Exactly.
So,
and why do you think that, like, why don't we get to that point? What do you think is the problem there? Why don't we get to a point of saying, instead of waiting for, human rights to be violated and everything to do something, why don't we, implement human rights? What's happening? I think that there's a lack of education, but you can say a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. That is spot on, but people don't understand what education means sometimes. People have their own misunderstandings of what an education is. First of all, an education doesn't mean you read something and then you've read it and it's in your resume. or you studied something and you can pass a test, and therefore you have the credit for it, and that's it. You have credit. To get the knowledge of something, to get educated on something, it actually means that you comprehend it and you can apply it. If you can't apply it, you're not understanding it, you're not studying it correctly.
Right.
Because there's no end purpose to the studying. It's like, let me study how to fly a plane, but I can't fly the plane after I've studied it. Well, what did you just do? You just wasted an hour reading a book.
Right, exactly.
And it's with human rights. Like, how do we get to that point? That point is going to be reached with education. I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you how. Why? Okay. Because education is the building block that surrounds being able to control and handle that area of whatever you're talking about. What do I mean by that? So you have knowledge on something. When you gain knowledge about something, you get that education, you understand it, you comprehend it. Only then can you actually take responsibility for for the subject you're studying, because you now understand it. Without understanding it, you won't be able to be there and be responsible and do something about it. So when you have your knowledge, you get that education, you get that understanding, you can then go and take responsibility for whatever it is that is in front of you. And with that comes control over the subject. So you're able to actually manage and control and be there responsibly, knowing what you're doing and knowing what you're talking about to handle whatever it is that is in that field. So it's this three-pronged system of understanding something, being able to be there and willingly, own it, and then being able to manage it ethically and effectively. And so that's why education will handle it. So then how is the education going to handle it? How is it that human rights and so forth, how do we do that? Well, it's almost like you're asking for like an atomic bomb of knowledge to go off all at once that affects everyone at the same time, which is impossible. Unfortunately, the bombs that we do have that were invented do everything but help. If only people would use those resources to figure out how to help, maybe that energy would have already solved our problems. So, like, let's spend billions on the other stuff.
Right.
So the point is that, you have the how. It's really, you get into an area. Like, imagine this. This is simple. We're going to bring it down. We're not going to talk about 7.8 billion people. We're going to talk about, 500 students in a class in a school. Yeah. 500 students in a school. Well, what happens if you teach one student their human rights, and that student decides that he will no longer permit his rights to be violated? He will not permit someone else's rights to be violated that's next to him, but also he will ensure that the other people around him, that he's respecting the rights of everyone else around him. So he's not just fighting and standing up for his rights, but he is respecting the rights of other people around him. So it's twofold. So when you teach one student at that school, you probably won't see a big change. You'll see one individual trying to lead and change his life, and that person's life will start getting better to the degree that he's able to maintain his integrity again. But what would happen is if in a 1 month time period, you taught 400 or 250 of those students their rights, and they decided to take responsibility and for their rights and for those around them. And you took 250 of the 500 students and you said, good, you're now responsible for this. You're now responsible for making sure that these rights are applied. And if you don't make sure that they're applied on the person next to you, well, then guess what? Your rights will also be violated, because it's a two-pronged system. You can't demand your rights yet not respect other people's rights. You lose them. Totally. So when 250 kids of the 500 start doing it, I promise you, you'll see that change. You'll see it, because the group is now putting pressure within the group. And the group is now making sure that the other members of the group are adhering to those morals, the moral code of human rights. So extend that into a household, into a church, its parishioners, into a city or a neighborhood, and you see how it's in an office. You see how it starts to create that ripple effect and permeate. So that's why I said it's almost like you just want to have that bomb go off and you're done, Totally. But that's why we need people. That's why we need people to advocate and to go out that will do something about the things that they see, that won't stand by and let someone have human rights violated and won't permit their rights to be violated. Of course, we need to speak out against the human rights violations that happen all over the world, because unfortunately they exist. But we need to also stand up for the human rights violations that exist at the mall in your city and in your school and in your church and in your community.
In your family.
In your family. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Start here. Start here. Yeah. You know, like, march for the things happening somewhere else. By all means, do that. By all means. But also stand up for the problems in your own community, because I promise you they exist. I promise you they exist. If you think they don't, you're not looking. And I'm not trying to say anything but that. If you think they don't, you're not looking.
Right. And that's a good point. Yeah, you're actually talking, because a lot of people think that I mean, as you're saying, like, there's a lot of human rights violations all over the world, right? Like, we see that. But a lot of people think that, I mean, they should just demand that human rights are protected by the government, you know, like politicians. And that's fine. Like, they have that responsibility also, right? And they should totally do that. But when you're also demanding, you know, like, governments to do that, how are you protecting them in your own life, right? Like, in your own world that you're living in. If you don't even protect them there, how is another person gonna protect it, right? Like, you have to protect. It has to start from you, right?
Always. You can't ask your child to wipe his mouth if you got a mouth full of dirt.
Right.
You know, you just can't. You can't. You know, you have to, you know, practice what you preach. And that applies to this 100%.
Totally. Yeah. And also, okay, so one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, because we talked about something like really important, because we said we need education, right? We need everybody to be educated, not just one person. I mean, of course we want one person, right? But we want everyone to be on board on this. And in the media, right, you hear a lot, like, they're all talking about human rights. And people are talking about human rights, you know, like, just the word, right? Human rights, blah, 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 human rights, blah, blah, blah.
It's like a catchphrase. People love just saying it. I love it.
Exactly. But then when you ask them how many human rights you have, or when you ask them what are human rights, they don't really have the answer. And I've had that in, like, some of the, when I done a seminar, I'm like, how many people know what or have heard about human rights? Almost all of people, like, raise their hand, right? But then you ask them, okay, how many human rights do we have? And then everybody's like kind of guessing. They have no idea, right?
Totally.
So exactly. So a very important piece is education, right? So how do you see that education on human rights? Like, currently we don't have it as a formal curriculum in schools, right? There's a lot of teachers that are on board on actually teaching human rights, but how do we get this further? Like, if somebody is watching right now that can actually make this into, like, let's just be dreamers here, and let's make this into something that somebody's watching and that has the power to actually have education in formal curriculums in schools, that kids can have this education that we didn't have as kids, right? I never had education when I was a kid on human rights, and there's a lot of adults that don't know what human rights are. So how, if we could do this, like,
how do we do it?
How do we do it? Like,
good.
Oh, yeah.
So I got you. It's solid.
And why should we do this? Why should we do? I mean, I guess you kind of covered why we should do it, like, on a, you know, because we want to impact more people, so that it kind of like a triple effect, right? So So go ahead.
So I got what you're asking, and a little additional point on why. This has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do with issues. This has nothing to do with left and right. This has nothing to do with black or blue. Nothing to do with that. This is rights that are humanity's rights. These are the moral codes of how to live your life, no matter who you are. And by all means, you'd look at the 30 human rights, and it was created in 1948, and someone can look at that and have their own viewpoint on it. They look at it and they say, well, you know what? I don't agree with this. And I say, okay, great. Well, you write a better document and get that signed by 90-something nations, and then get agreements, and then we'll move forward. But until that happens, this is the only document on human rights that has it's the most widely accepted document by countries around the world. So right. I'm sure that it's not an easy thing to get many countries 3 years after World War II to agree on one document.
Right.
And that's what was done with this document in 1948. So
it's a great accomplishment, really.
Yeah.
If you see it that way, yeah.
It's massive. Even now, 70-something years later, how many people can get agreement from more than 10 countries on one thing or 20 countries on one thing? It takes a bit of work.
Yeah.
So it's been done, but it takes work. And so the point to that is, like, we're not talking here specific issues that individuals, communities, societies have on their own. You know what? Those issues need to be handled by the people in the societies, and we're here to help on that. But we're not here to tell you which side is right? We're here to say that both sides have the same human rights, no matter what. And you can disagree with that, but I'm sorry, it's the truth. Both sides are equal. Both sides have the same human rights, and both need to treat each other. And I'm not just talking politically. I'm talking on any subject.
Right.
So that's that. And in terms of how, if anyone here is watching that, everyone has power. Everyone knows somebody. Everyone has an impact, no matter how big or small. And when we're talking at a small scale, take the program. I have it here. Take the program. Take the material. This is it. Can you see that well, Sandra?
Yep.
Yeah. So take the program. It looks like this. There's a DVD. There's a booklet. This looks like an infomercial. And, and just take this booklet and read it. And then, you know what? Go teach someone else about it. Go tell someone else that these rights are theirs. And that's small scale. Big scale, large scale, connect us up with larger organizations, with large churches. Even larger scale, let's make human rights education mandatory in Florida. I'm talking real human rights education. I'm not talking just civil rights. I'm not talking just the Constitution, which is needed. But let's also make the rights that we all have, even if we're not Americans, no matter who we are, no matter where we go, let's make that mandatory. Let's take a bill and get it passed through. Let's formulate and adopt or edit something that already exists, so that's a simple document called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, written by the United Nations in 1948, becomes accessible to children. Because if you didn't know, well, now you know. It's not. It doesn't exist in formal education.
Exactly.
A lot of educators, a lot of teachers find ways to teach that subject once they hear about it, or if they already knew. And they'll figure out how to do that. And that's also why we're here, because they can take this material and they can use this, the videos, a lot of different resources that we have, and they can actually teach with it and figure out how it fits into their social studies classes, their civics classes, world history, language arts, and so forth. But let's take it a step further. Why do they have to go and figure out a way to do it? Why isn't it a part of Common Core? Why isn't it a part of the actual formal education that is in a semester, so that students walk out with their degree and in their diploma, and they know what the moral code is of life, of respect, of livingness and happiness? And we have we create that culture where at least 250 out of the 500 people in one school know and respect each other's human rights. That's the society that we would live in if human rights education was mandatory in schools, because it would just be like, it's there. Learn it, apply it. Like, learn it, drill it, apply it. That's what you need to do. Learn it, drill it, apply it. Done.
Totally.
Drill it.
And I think a lot of the issues that we see even in schools and society, like you mentioned several, right, would be totally covered. You would not have them. I believe really that we would not have them. Talk about discrimination, bullying, all these things that we see, especially in schools, they would be eradicated totally, because everybody would be respecting that, right?
Absolutely. And those that
respecting each person as an individual with dignity, just because they're human, not because they're part of something, I'm Latin. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I mean, I have my rights, right? But I am human, and I have the rights that all humans are, not just because I'm Latin, because I'm a human. Kind of like.
Yeah, and that's the difference between civil rights and human rights. Of course, we're both. I'm, from Spain. You're Latin American, but we both obviously have civil rights here too. But the point is that there's a difference. Human rights are everybody's, no matter who they are.
Exactly.
And it might not be an end all. Of course, like it's not human rights education will solve every single problem on this world, and all of a sudden we're all, world full of zero any problem that exists. It's not like that. But the point is that it's so basic. It's almost ridiculous it doesn't happen already. It's so fundamental that it's, to me, it's, it's so, I'm in awe.
It's like the basics of how we should be living, right?
Humanity.
Right.
Everyone should know what these rights are. Everyone should know what these rights are. It's like, hey, here's your birth certificate. This is your name. These are your parents. These are your human rights. That's in the pack you get when you're born. Like when you're born, you should get a pack, right? And it's like, this is Cristian Vargas's. This is Sandra Moreno's. When she can read, make sure she sees this. And it's like your birth certificate, your name, your age, your date of birth, the name of your parents, and your 30 human rights. And it's like, there you go. Just take it home.
Yeah. I actually just I know like when I was in a school, like I think it was a middle school, like a girl like probably like 14 years old. She was like, after I did the seminar, she was like, wait a minute, are you saying that I've had this right since the day I was born? And I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, why didn't I know about this before?
Right.
Right. That's like, this is exactly like what you're communicating. And that's exactly what they get. It's like, why don't I know this? Like,
it's okay. One of my favorite people has a word for this. Okay. And if he's watching, he'll know what I'm about to say. And if he's not, you probably know what I'm about to say, or he'll see it. It's called foolishness. It's just straight foolishness. Why? Why don't people already know? That's the real question. Probably because people don't want, some person somewhere doesn't want people to know, because with this, you're going to solve so many more problems than you'd ever realize you could. Then you ever realize
violence, right?
That's right. With all the violence, with all the arguing, with all of this and that, you just take this and you run with it. And it creates a point of mutual respect. I mean, I've seen bullying drastically drop in schools. I've seen truancy totally turn around. I've seen the number of complaints and allegations against human rights to a national military, to the national armed forces of a nation. I've seen the number of complaints to their armed forces drop 93% because the armed forces simply learned what the rights were of the people they were supposed to protect, and they stopped violating them themselves. I've seen communities, schools, churches, and entire countries change the way they operate because they just learned what the rights that they have are. And that change is immense. So, you just got to learn your human rights. That's it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Love it. So to kind of wrap it up, Cristian, because I think it's been really, really
It's been real. It's been real.
I love
We've been here. We're real. I'm loving this. I hope people are loving it too. We
have a lot of comments, but no new questions, so I haven't asked more. But so if anybody has a question, do it now before we close this. So yeah, and so like somebody got inspired by you, like somebody watching this or now or maybe later in the replay, they got inspired, right? Like they want to help. They're like, okay, so what can I do? How do I help? How do I get on board? So tell them about that. Like anyone from, I guess, Florida, but there's people from all over. So how can they start?
Okay, well, simple. Okay, if you want to volunteer, we have a ton of different projects, a ton of different things that we're involved in, and we need your help with that. I'm talking everything from the menial work of, administratively, Excel jobs, research jobs, you name it, volunteer work from all different sides of life, to delivering, training, reaching, outreach, coordinating events, organizing, all these things. We need it because there's no limit to what we can't do. And we're such a basic platform of human rights that someone walks in and says, good, I have this idea. I want to deliver a seminar to the school that's down the street from my house. And I say, great, we'll train you. Go, call them.
Right.
Let's do it. There's no good. So to be able to do that, you need to do a 3-month extensive training program and then get pre-qualified and submit your taxes. You don't need to do that here, So that's volunteer basis. And there's so many different opportunities for that. And we welcome any and all ideas. And for us, it's just come in, call us, message us on Facebook, and we'll get you involved. If it's you want to start your own activities, you want to start your own chapter, you're anywhere around the world, and you want to get involved with your own activities, your own voice to promote or educate human rights in your school, in your community, in your classroom, you're the teacher, or at home, your neighborhood, no matter what it is, then message us. And minimally, we're going to send you the material for free, of course. And if you want to start,
that's important. I don't know if you mentioned it. All the materials free for everybody.
I don't think I did. Okay. We should rewind, tell people that at the beginning of it and at the end of it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's at no cost. And so we'll send them the material. You get booklets, you get the DVD. And of course, all this is on our website as well, free. You can download it on our website, which is humanrights.com. But we'll make sure we link all these different things. But, we'll send it to you, the booklets, DVD, lesson plans, an educator guide with, different projects and problem solvers and things like that. And we'll also send you a PDF of a step-by-step of what you can do and how you can start your own chapter. It's very basic, and it's just, you want to start your own chapter, this is what you can do and how you do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's something that we just kind of put together to help individuals get started no matter where they are. So that's something that you can also let us know, whether you're in Florida or you're out of the state, out of the country. We can email this to you as well, and you just kind of read it and start. It's just like add water and mix. I mean, you literally just need to pick up the material, walk to somebody in front of you and say, do you know your human rights? And you've started. You've started by doing that.
Right.
Then take it a step further. Hand out 10 booklets. Go and speak in front of a crowd. Go and tell your kids their human rights. Have your kids take it to their school, or go have the public service announcements, which we have these 30 videos, one for each of the human rights, and have those played at your school, or have those played at the bus station that you catch every day, and ask the guy in charge if you can play them. So many things you can do. It's endless.
And they're made in an easy way for anybody to understand. That's one of the things that I like about the videos and the materials, right? It takes the whole 30 human rights into a way that a kid can understand, right? What is this human rights about? So that's right. That's also good to point it out. Sometimes people think it's gonna get into the laws or things like that. It's super simple, right?
Good point. Yeah, I mean, it's super simple. I've worked with children that are 7, 8 years old, and I've worked with political science professors in universities and colleges. And one for one, they're like, oh, I didn't know about this.
Yes.
And, it's like, that's how simple it is. I mean, literally, 2 sentences. The right to privacy, and there's a sentence, and 2, and freedom to move, and there's another sentence. So it's super simple. You want the full articles. The articles are in the back of the booklet as well. You can go through all 30. You want the adult version, we have it. There's more adult version, which is more advanced. But everyone always starts with the one that I showed you. Everyone always starts with that because it's basic and it's simple. And no matter who you are, no matter how young or old or not young you are, no matter who you are, that's the basic one.
Totally.
Yeah.
So anybody can get on board, basically, right?
Anybody can get on board. The material is free. Don't charge you at all. If you want 1 booklet, it's free. If you want 100 booklets, it's free. If you want 1,000 booklets for all the students in your school or your church or wherever you go, it's free. You let us know. We work together. We'll get it to you. Obviously, we just need to know what you're going to do. And that way we know we're, sending booklets to a person that's going to do something with them and going to let us know what they did. And, the DVD, the material, of course, and the help, the advice, the ideas, we're here for that. So anyone that wants to get involved, wants to teach it, wants to volunteer, wants to start their own activities, we welcome you. We encourage you. Actually, we don't welcome you. We encourage you.
No,
We
exactly.
urge you. I don't welcome you. I urge you to get involved. You're not doing this for me. This is not for me. I urge you to get involved for yourself and the people you love. That's why you should do it. It's not for me. I know why I'm doing it, which is also not for me, you know? So that's why we do this. We want people that want to help.
Totally. I love it. And then just another, I'm going to point this out. So somebody actually, she put in the comments that the name is Gretchen Mickler. I don't know if you know her, but
I haven't heard of her. Hello.
Okay, she said, I got inspired of this information. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and knowledge and experience of human rights. Love it.
Very happy to hear that. And thank you for watching and being here. And I hope to hear from you. PM us, comments. I hope to hear from you more. And, you know, we can work together and push forward this message.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think with this, Cristian, we say goodbye for tonight.
Okay. It's time to say goodbye, as Andrea says. But until the next time.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and you can still share it once we're done, right? So other people can watch.
Yeah, we'll leave it on here. Like I said, smash that share button, you know, push that like button, give us a comment if you like it, and you know, spread the good word. We're here. We're always here.
And we're happy to help everyone, right? That wants to get on board.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Sandra, for having me. Thank you for doing this. This was super fun. I liked it a lot.
It was fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Totally. Okay. Yeah. So good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.